Happy Tuesday, and let's get this week started officially now. So we had a nice short little AMRAP yesterday for our Thanksgiving workout. Today we're going to kickstart off our actual week, or our work week, we'll say, with some strength. So we're going back to the upper body pressing today. So before we get to the work set, let's talk about our warm-up. Our warm-up is going to be a plank lean for 2 to down dog for 3 to 5. Quad plank of 20 seconds, just a static hold. Floor pike hold for 10 to 30 seconds, and then forearm side plank of 15 to 30 seconds per side. So there's a big range there for you guys, so just give yourself that kind of engagement, that little dose that you guys need the most. We'll hit that for 2 rounds. Then from there, we're going to move into a little practice piece where you're going to use this to kind of figure out your working weights and kind of just get used to the movements that we're going to see in the work set. So we have a shoulder press for 5 at a 3-second eccentric, or we have a push press for 5 with a 3-second eccentric. So it depends on what kind of loading you have available at home or where you're working out today. So you have that 3-second eccentric regardless of push press or shoulder press. From there, you're going to move into a tricep roll back with 3 to 5 and a 3-second eccentric. And again, this is going to give you guys an opportunity just to see where you're at, how you want to take this down with the loading you have available at home. After that, you're going to work on 5 flies, and I'm going to show you a couple of variations of fly that you can use empty-handed and you can use with load. You're going to take that for 5, and you're going to hit that up for a couple of rounds just to kind of figure out working weight to make sure that you're comfortable with what you got, so that when you start up the work set, you're at your challenging loads and you're not warming up in your work sets. So if you want to change your loads in your work sets, that's fine, but you should be kick-starting off with that challenging weight that is going to cause you a little bit of grief physically and mentally, but still able to pull these numbers off. So our work set today is 3 to 5 rounds, 10 shoulder press, all right, so we have 3-second eccentric. Again, if you're using a dumbbell push press here, we're still sticking with that 3-second eccentric. Then you are going to take down 1 round of this triplet, Bicep Curl to Arnold Press of 12 reps at 3-second eccentric, into our Tricep Roll Back for 12 reps, 3-second eccentric, and then 12 dumbbell flies, or fly variation that you're going to use in today's work set. After that, you're going to rest. I again would say anywhere from 2.5 to 3 minutes in between these rounds, just because it's a lot of work and the shoulders don't tolerate as much punishment as the legs do. So we definitely want to make sure we're giving them that time to recover so we can hit each of these rounds hard. Let's get you warmed up, let's get you prepped, and start this week off the right way. All right, you guys, let's get those feet under those hips. We'll take the arms big and tall up overhead. We're going to stretch it to one side. We're going to come back through and take it to the other side. Come back up, forward fold. We're going to touch those toes, walking up those shins. We're going to come all the way down, framing the foot, stepping that foot back into that nice lizard. We're going to take that inside hand all the way up to the sky. We're going to rotate forearm to the floor. We're going to come back up and rotate forearm to the floor. Back up and rotate forearm to the floor. And back up to the sky. We're going to plant that hand, step back into our down dog. Setting those shoulders, just holding this position for a moment. We're going to come back into our plank. We're going to step the other foot up. Nice and solid here in that lizard. Inside hand is going to reach to the ceiling. We're going to rotate forearm to the floor. We'll come back up and then rotate forearm to the floor. Come back up and then rotate forearm to the floor. And back up. Plant the hand. Step back into that lizard, straight into that down dog. One of those animals. We'll press and hold the heel just to stretch out those calves and ankles a bit. We'll switch it over to the other side. Come back into that plank, pressing the floor away. We'll tiptoe those feet up. We're going to roll ourselves all the way up. Big stretch overhead. Big reach to one side. Reach to the other side. Come down with those hands. Let's get you guys fired up. All right, now, if you have any extra movement you know you need to take down before we start any overhead work, please take the time to do that. Our warm-up coming up is going to spend a lot of time getting that core and those shoulders ready. But if there's anything like band work or any other stuff you need, take that down now. We're going to come back at you with some good old-fashioned core and shoulder warm-up. We're going to start off our day together with a plank lean to down dog. So I'm going to get myself established in this nice plank position. So my hands are just outside the shoulders. I'm going to push the floor away a little bit so my shoulders are nice and active. I'm going to pull my ribs in. And from here, I'm just going to keep pushing the floor away as I shift to one side. And then you keep pushing the floor away as I shift to the other side. From here, I'm going to come back to center, resetting that pressure into the floor, and then pull those hips back and up into that down dog. As I soften my knees and my ankles so I can really focus on that good pressure into the floor with that nice overhead position. And then come back into that plank, pressing through the floor to set that plank up before I shift into my leans once again. So with this work set, we really want to make sure that we're establishing that strong plank and that slight pressure into the ground, so that we can really feel that activation through the upper back the entire time we shift, and then that entire time we're moving into that overhead position, making sure that that shoulder is in good positioning. Now from there, we're going to move into a quad plank, but if you want to give yourself a little moment in between these two things in your hands, there's nothing wrong with dropping down to a tabletop, doing a couple cat-cow curls, thread the needles, whatever you need to take down for yourself before we hit that quad plank. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So the quad plank, I get myself set up in my tabletop. So my hands gripping the floor nice and solid, my toes are curled under, and I'm going to push through the floor a bit, pull the ribs in, and then I'm going to lift those knees about an inch by pulling everything towards my center line. So I'm going to pull everything together, activating through the upper body, creating that good tension through the core. The only kicker here is I'm not trying to roll into a cat back. I'm just activating a little bit of back pressure and in pressure with the legs to create that good tension through the midsection. And you're going to hold that nice active quad plank for 20 seconds at the most. Now, the big thing here that we want to keep in mind is we want to make sure that those shoulders stay active the entire time we're doing that plank. So if you feel them disengage at all, just come out of it, give yourself a little break, maybe bank some time and accumulate 20 seconds, or just take the time that you can hold as one hold and then move on to the next one, because our next one is going to be another static hold, but more into that vertical position. So like I mentioned before, if you want to give your hands a little break, you can work on some cat-cows, thread the needles, just work on moving those shoulders around a little bit differently before we move into our floor pike hold. Now the floor pike hold will be established in that same position. Hands are going to go to the shoulders, my knees will come together, toes will be curled under. I'm going to push the floor away a bit, pull my ribs in, and then I'm going to push my hips up into the air. Nice straight legs, straight active arms. My eyes are looking down towards my toes, and I'm going to keep my shoulders over top of my hands the whole time. So like that quad plank, we want to make sure that we are always pushing through the floor into that nice overhead position. We're keeping the ribs pulled in so we hit that really nice hollow position that we want to hold in our handstand. So it's a nice opportunity to work on the activation necessary to hold a handstand, but with our feet on the floor. Now, if you want to tiptoe your feet a little closer to your hands, that's fine, but we want to make sure that we're always loading forward and not sitting back like a down dog. We want to keep that weight and pressure over the hands. Last but not least, we're going to move into our forearm side plank. And you can do this one of two ways. We can get ourselves down into a full laying position, elbows stacked underneath the shoulder. I'm nice and stacked with my feet, and then I lift my hips up, squeezing upwards through the side, pushing down through the shoulder and arm, and I can reach, I can bring it down, I can bring the hand to the chest, wherever you'd like to kind of hold that position. Or we can bend the knees, and we can find this nice kind of supported side plank position, still squeezing through the side body, still pushing down through the shoulder and the arm as I reach up with that arm. Again, it can come to the side or across the chest, whichever positioning suits you the best for that side plank. Now in that side plank, you're going to hold for 15 to 30 seconds per side. Again, setting it up on the opposite side to make sure you're good to go and ready for action. Now as a quick recap, we have a plank lean for 2 to down dog for 3 to 5, quad plank of 20 seconds, floor pike hold of 10 to 30 seconds, and a forearm side plank of 15 to 30 seconds per side for 2 rounds to get yourself just heated up and ready to go. Now pause the video, take that down. We're going to move into the movements that we're going to use in our workout. We're going to get those dumbbells out there and some other different options as well. All right, our little practice round is going to give us a chance to kind of experience these movements and allow us to kind of use this to find our working weight. We're going to kickstart off with our shoulder press or push press. So I'm going to clean my dumbbell or dumbbells up to the shoulder. So the back of the dumbbell rests on my shoulder in the front rack position. My elbow is going to be slightly down, but I'm staying active through my upper body, through the side, through the core, and I'm nice and ready here. Now with this, pressing with either one hand or 2, depending on how many dumbbells I have, I will press, taking that dumbbell all the way up overhead, armpit is facing forward, I'm pressing active through the arm and through that side, and I will pull down for 3 seconds to the shoulder. Take a little moment, get tight, press back into that overhead position. Now with this shoulder press, even though there's no hip or leg assistance, we are still engaged through the legs, through the hips, through the core to create one big giant pillar of strength for that big press overhead. Now if we have too heavy of a dumbbell at home to shoulder press, we can use the push press, which is the same start position. So I clean the dumbbell or dumbbells up to the shoulder, back of the dumbbell is resting on my shoulder. I'm going to dip into this nice vertical dip. Knees go slightly out, my hip and shoulder are stacked on top of each other, and I'm going to push through those feet and drive that dumbbell in that overhead position, the same position as I had for my shoulder press. Now at speed, it looks like so. We dip, big drive, and then we come back down for 3 seconds. Now it's very important that we focus the dip as a setup mechanism. So we're pulling down into the bottom of the dip, then driving up super fast. So the down is a little slower than the up. And we have to remember that. It's not a fast dip. It's a smooth dip, so we set ourselves up well for the drive. So if that finish position, start position is always in the same location, regardless of shoulder or push press. Our next exercise is the Tricep Roll Back, and I am a fan of these quite a bit. This is one of those exercises for the triceps that I find really nail those triceps well. And we can do this with a single dumbbell, we can do this with 2 dumbbells, depending on how you want to tackle this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves set up on the floor, feet just outside of my fingers. So I'm nice and set up kind of like I'm going to do a bridge. My ribs are pulled in, my low back is in contact with the floor, and my dumbbell is going to be over my chest and or parallel to each other, just like I just did a floor press. So the dumbbells are parallel to each other. What I'm going to do here with a single or a double, we're going to bend at the elbow, bringing that dumbbell head to the shoulder. The elbow is still pointing up towards the ceiling. And then I'm going to take the top or the back or dumbbell head to the floor. And then I'm going to throw. So the act of throwing, but I'm not going to let go of the dumbbell. So again, I bend at the elbow, keeping the elbow in place. Dumbbell head comes to the shoulder. Other dumbbell head touches the floor, while the other one is still in contact with the shoulder, and then I extend. So it's almost like I'm lowering that dumbbell into a front rack position. Then I take the dumbbell up towards the floor and extend. Now I'll do that with 2 dumbbells or a single, or depending on the loading I have, I can actually do it with my hands on the dumbbell belts. So if my dumbbells are a little bit too heavy, I can do this with 1 dumbbell with both hands. What I'll do is I'll bring the dumbbell down towards the forehead, keeping the elbows up. Then I will take the dumbbell down just above the forehead to the floor, and then I'll extend. So I keep the elbows pointing to the ceiling, dumbbell comes to the forehead, I lower it down to the floor just above, and extend. So I'm going to get that same kind of motion, but just not as much loading with the dumbbell on a single arm. So it's a nice option. Just make sure you're going slow enough that you don't smoke yourself on the forehead with the dumbbell, because that would not feel very good. Now, the last one, the fly. Now, this one is a fun little exercise with 2 dumbbells, and these are going to be pretty light. So we'll have ribs in, nice and solid against the floor. I'll have 2 dumbbells, nice and parallel to each other. I'm going to have a soft elbow, so they're not necessarily straight and locked out, but they're not bent either. So they're just soft through the elbow, active through the ribs. I'm going to open up those arms, bringing that arm down to the floor. The dumbbell may not touch the floor, and that's okay. You might just touch the elbow and the tricep down to the ground as you lower down to the floor. And then you're going to bring them back together. There's no eccentric, but this is not a fast movement by no means. And it really doesn't need a lot of loading to get really good bang for your buck. So we want to make sure that we're listening to our body and we can control the motion as much as we can. Now, a nice cool option without any load, you can do this with a band as well if you have a band, but you can also do this empty-handed, and it's kind of neat actually. So what you're going to think about doing is you're going to pull the ribs in, you're going to take your hands above, so the hands are facing each other just like they would if you had dumbbells. You're going to imagine that you're holding on to like a ball of silly putty. And what you're going to do is you're going to pull that ball of silly putty apart until you come down, and then you're going to push it back together. You're going to pull it apart, same motion, and push it back together. And you're going to bring some energy to that in that empty hand variation. So if I was laying on my back, I'd have my hands out to the front, my ribs are in, I would pull it apart, and then I'm going to push back together. And I have some pretty strong engagement through my arms right now, and it's definitely not an easy sensation. So I want you to imagine that you're pulling that apart and then pushing that together like there's resistance. It's a cool movement. It's going to open up through the pec and through the lat a little bit. You're going to feel that. And again, you don't have to go super heavy with this to be effective, because I guarantee you the next day or two, you're going to be like, oh, what did I do? All right? And that's going to be those flies. Those flies show up because we don't do them very often. So anytime we do, they just sort of show up a little bit more noticeable than other movements. So rock that fly. Get yourself figured out in terms of, do I have a light enough load? Even a couple of cans of soup or some water bottles will do if you don't have light enough dumbbells at home. I've even had some people use 2.5, 5-pound plates if they don't have lighter dumbbells. So check that out. Make sure you're using some light loading or even no loading in terms of working that fly. So as a quick recap, we have a shoulder press for 5 at 3-second eccentric, tricep roll back for 3 to 5 at a 3-second eccentric, and then a dumbbell fly for 5. Just empty hand, light load, figuring out the motion, figuring out where you need to be. You're going to hit that for 1 to 2 rounds. Just going to use that to get yourself ready to go. And then we're going to move ourselves into the workout. So prime yourself, get yourself ready, figure out some loading. We got one more movement that we have to talk about, and I'll talk about that next. All right, you guys, we've made it to the work set. We got 3 to 5 rounds. First things first, you're going to do a dumbbell shoulder press or a push press for 10 reps unbroken with a 3-second eccentric. So remember, if you don't have a load that's light enough to shoulder press, you can use the push press. But if you do have a load that you can shoulder press, choose the shoulder press today, because you'll have a chance to either do more push presses later on down the road. So use that strict press if you have it, or if you have the available loading. Then you're going to move into our first movement in our little accessory work set, the one that we haven't covered yet, which is the bicep curl to Arnold press. So this is a cool movement. I'm going to deadlift my dumbbell up, and I'm going to turn the dumbbell either parallel to my body, or I'm going to take it so it's to the front. So either one works for me. If you want to go to the side, that's okay. If you want to go from the front, it's all good. The motion is the same. You can do this with 1 dumbbell or 2 at the same time. It's all good. If you have 2 lighter dumbbells, then you can rock it 2, or if you just have the 1, use the single. What you're going to do is you're going to curl the dumbbell up to your shoulder. The dumbbell, or the palm of the hand will be facing the body. Then we are going to press and rotate the dumbbell overhead. The dumbbell just disappeared on camera, but I'll make sure I back up for the next rep. Then as you come down, you're going to rotate the palm back towards the chest, and then you're going to lower it down towards our thigh. So this is not a momentum exercise. This is pretty strict and stable, so we have to really stay tight through the midsection. So I pull the dumbbell up to my shoulder, palm facing shoulder, push the dumbbell up, rotating as I press, palm facing away from the chest. Now I come down, rotate as I pull the dumbbell to the shoulder, and then lower down into that extension. So it's a really cool exercise that gives us a curl and a press. Now the thing we have to really work on, and I know this sometimes gets people a lot, not so much on the curl, as it's all one, but on the press. As we press, we are rotating in the middle of the press, and as we pull the dumbbell down, we're rotating kind of like a corkscrew on the way down. We're not turning at the top then pulling it down, or turning at the bottom and pressing it up. It all happens at the same time. So we want to make sure that's kind of like a corkscrew that we're doing as we press and bring it back down. So practice that, use that. It's not going to be a heavy load. You can actually even use bands for this as we pull up and then rotate up. You can use a band if you have bands at home as well. You're going to hit that for 12 with a 3-second eccentric. Then you're going to move into that tricep rollback, one of the options we covered in our previous warm-up. So if you need to review those, check those out in your previous warm-up. You're going to hit 12 of those for a 3-second eccentric. And then we're going to do a dumbbell fly for 12 reps, just no tempo, no eccentric. Then from there, you'll rest 2 to 3 minutes, we'll say, or 2.5 to 3 minutes. Give yourself ample time. We want to make sure those shoulders are good and ready for what's to come next. This is going to give you a big shoulder pump and chest pump, so please make sure you're giving yourself ample rest and allowing your body to recover. Now, I hope you guys enjoy. This is a nice chunk of shoulder pressing with plus some bodybuilding movements to help work on some tendon strength and just some kind of smaller, kind of stabilizing, isolating muscle kind of stuff. So enjoy it, have fun with it. As always, work for quality, have a ton of fun, and we have a couple birthdays coming at you the next couple days, so be prepared. It's going to be a doozy of a week. Bye, you guys.